Right, we've gotten to that moment where we get to check the papers out and let you know the stories that are really making headlines as other papers have actually reported this morning. My name is Dima, and it is still the Ultimate Morning Show here on Ray Power 100.5 FM. As promised, this particular segment, of course, does not have the Collins segment, but you can watch it live on YouTube and share your contribution in the comment section. And the handle is Ray Power Abuja. All right, let's get right into the paper review this morning, starting off with the Daily Asset newspaper. And the big story there says, ahead of 2027, Appeal Court reinstates INEC election timetable, affirms Commission's administrative discretion, electoral body considers mock presidential poll. Now, the story, if you want to read it in detail, as far as the Daily Asset is concerned this morning, is on page 2. Tinubu launches $3.05 billion social investment programs. World Bank backed intervention target farmers, healthcare, schools, SMEs, IDPs benefit from the same. This opens on the front page here, continues on page 2. Armed has continued attack on Benue community despite security assurance on page 23. And you just have to ask yourself, in this week alone, starting Monday or during the weekend up until this moment, how many attacks have you heard and seen in Benue State? This is very sad. Taraba Titan Security targets illegal mining and kidnapping. That's on page 4. 10 candidates emerge highest scorers in national common entrance examination. Kudos to them there. The story is on page 20. New monkey species with orange lips found in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Everybody just wants to see that monkey. Like, seeing the story, you just want to go, what kind of it? Like, you see monkeys on a normal day, they have the pink lip. Now, this one has orange lips. I mean, somebody don't go rub and lipstick. Anyway, that's the story. And that for the Daily Asset is on page 26. A little bit of sports. Nigeria misses 2026 African Table Tennis Championship. Page 29 read there. But let's move away from the Daily Assets to the Whistler this morning. Big story says CBN tightens grip on FX market with real-time BDC monitoring, introduces centralized transaction tracker to boost transparency, banks barred from exclusive deals, defaulters face sanction. Page 12 read on that story. Now to other stories here. Senate confirms Tinubu's nominee amid sexual harassment allegations. Akpabio jabs Oshomole over foot massage video. Well, this story in detail you can read on page 8 of the Whistler this morning. Gbajabiamila sues alleged fake PFIPC DG, seek 15 billion naira for defamation. Page 14 read there. Election uncertainty won't derail capital markets growth, SEC assures. Read that on page 10. And above the nameplate, federal government reorganizes skill ecosystem as ITF, NBTE, partner for industrial ready workforce, warns fake artisans against infiltrating ITF skill program. Page 9 read there. 100,000 naira companies risk, or rather 100,000 companies risk delisting as CAC issues 90-day ultimatum. Page 10 read there. Appeal Court sets aside judgment nullifying INEC's 2027 election guidelines. That's on page 15. And lastly, from the Whistler, regulatory conflict threatening electricity market reform, says the minister. Read that on page 7. Now we'll move on to check what the Daily News Craft has to say. And the big story is about the death at the Minister of Works David Umahi's residence. Says Nigerians angry over federal government silence on the matter. Blood was found in the victim's nose and mouth, according to a Ebonyi DPP report. Family police disagree on post-mortem. So what the family is saying is not what the police is saying. And Works Minister seeks transparent investigation. And the story is on page 2 of the Daily Newscraft today. To other stories, Tinubu approves the reconstruction of 2 major southeast roads. Page 8 read there. Which of the ones you might want to find out in detail on that story on page 8. Troops arrest alleged illegal mining kingpin and three others in Abuja. Page 3, read there. Kogi community raises alarm over suspicious sales of government properties. Read that story on page 4. Abuja City Walk is multi-billion-dollar future for Nigerians. This is coming from the President Tinubu. If you've been to that city gate to, see that and taking a walk there, you might want to share your experience on that. Well, that story is on page 11. Ahead of 2027, INEC mills full system audit, mock presidential election. That's on page 10. Now, above the nameplate, Africa risk losing $300 billion blue economy potential. BTPDI chairman giving that warning. That story opens on the front page, continues on page 8. You might want to find out on that. Okay, a bit of entertainment story here. Chama is my life coordinator. Coming from Davido, that's on page 13. Let's move on to the Nigerian Pilot newspaper. The big story is still on the death of the lady at David Umahi's home. Mary Haliba's death. Group ask Umahi to resign. Writers to the story gives him 7-day ultimatum to step aside for proper criminal investigation or face mass protest. Says his resignation will give way for security agencies to remand him for questioning, as NSP disowns Mary Haliba. Mary Haliba says such name is not in its database. And cautions public office holders to exercise due diligence in associating with individuals with regulated professions. That story is on page 8. Senate withdraws passage of crime proceed bill for fresh scrutiny. Page 7, read there. Delta police arrest content creator accused of raping 20-year-old woman. That's on page 8. Special seat for a woman bill will define 10th National Assembly legacy. Black Speaker wife warns. That's on page 8. And Abia to empower over 17,000 farmers as OT flags off input support program. The story is on page 5. Courts to deliver judgment on Turaki-led PDP suit against INEC and others today. That story is on page 6. U.S. reps pass bill to withhold assistance to Nigeria over terrorism. Read that on page 7 of the Nigerian Pilot today. Troops rescue 13 kidnapped victims, recover 2 vehicles in Zamfara State. Good news on page 6. And police arrest 2 Togolese nationals over alleged 22 million naira kidnap plots. The story is on page 7. Well, let's check out the Daily Sun before we go to business story this morning. Daily Sun big story is on terrorism. Says U.S. reps move against Nigeria. Passed bill to withhold assistance until terror attacks are addressed. UK reaffirms support for Nigeria's security sector reforms. The story for the Daily Sun today is on page 8. Appeal Court upholds INEC's 2027 election timetable. Voids High Court judgment. Page 6, read there. Foreign reserves hit $52 billion as Cardoso projects lower inflation. $1 billion monthly remittances. Page 2, read there. And Obi prioritizes education, healthcare in second phase of new Nigeria roadmap. Page 27, read. You might want to find out that. 210 trillion naira missing fund claim false. Missing fund claim false. NAPIM's ex-general manager tells Senate. Read that on page 25. And dead people names remain on INEC's record, coming from the chairman Amokiton. Well, that story you can read on page 21. And that's it from the Daily Sun. Well, let's quickly check out one business story before we dive into some of the stories this morning. From the Business NG, we have 79% of Nigerians are poor or vulnerable despite economic reforms. This statement is coming from the World Bank. And as far as this paper is concerned, it opens on the front page and continues on page 2. Nigeria's external reserve hit 17-year high as $51.86 billion. And that's also on page 2. Senate passes Federal Road Safety Amendment Bill proposes 100,000 naira fine for traffic light violations. This opens on the front page, continues on page 2. And CSC to strike off 100 companies, give 90-day compliance deadline, page 2 read as well. Nigeria's public debt hits 159.28 trillion naira as calls grow for greater economic reforms, also on page 2. And courts orders final forfeiture of Aisha Achimogo's 8.9 billion naira assets to federal government, page 2 read as well. EFCC rearraigns former Skybank chairman Tunde Ayeni over alleged 15.6 billion naira fraud. Just open the paper and you just be seeing misappropriation and fraud stories. Anyway, this one is on page 10. Lagos government orders documentation of roadside setback occupants, page 2 read as well. And those about the stories for this morning. You might want to, get to read some of them and get more update on some stories before you head into the weekend. Well, we checked out the Daily Asset, the Whistler, Daily Newscraft, Nigerian Pilot, Daily Sun, as well as the business story that we checked out from the Business NG. And it is clear in most of the papers this morning that the Senate was actually very busy yesterday, making laws, and also reactions have been busy as well before that time affecting Senate. One of the laws that the Senate made was that of confirming the former Vice Chancellor of the Federal University, Oyo Ekiti, as the nominee, the non-career ambassador, confirming that nominee that came from the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that was really a huge concern for some people, because a coalition of some civil rights group have actually told the Senate they led a protest to the National Assembly days before to say, look, we're not saying you should convict the man, but this man that his name has been submitted to the National Assembly has a standing case in the industrial court in Lagos and Abuja over sexual allegations while he was still the vice chancellor in that school, where it was reported that he assaulted or sexually harassed a colleague who was a deputy director in the same university, and other forms of claims and allegation against him. And they said, hold on appointing him until this case is cleared. You can't send someone who has such reputation at stake to go and represent Nigerians. But the bill has been, the nomination has been done and dusted. That has been sorted out. Despite all of that, the Senator Adams Oshomole and Senator Cyril Fashuyi were the people who approved the nomination according to them, based on reports of the Foreign Affairs Committee. But this is really raising a whole lot of dust in the social media space and even on the streets out there. People saying, why wouldn't this, why would you be eager to appoint somebody who is already having such a case standing in court? Why would you do that? Why don't you ask proper questions? You just, because it came from this place, you are appointing it and you are approving it. We have a problem with that. That is one issue that is standing there, with the Senate. And then another thing is, the Senate also passed a bill yesterday, very serious matter, that about the road safety. Now, I don't know whether you have ever defaulted as a driver before and whether you have been fined. I don't know how much you have been fined, but the standard of fines for, beating traffic, driving under the influence, reckless driving, all of those, moves has been 5,000 naira. Now, the Senate is saying that we are passing this bill, which if the president eventually assents to this bill, it happens that if you drive under the influence, it's no longer 5,000, it's 100,000 and 2 years jail sentence. If you beat traffic, it's no longer 5,000, it's 100,000. In fact, for any of the offense, it has moved from 5,000 to 100,000. And the reason the Senate is given is that this amount of money, 100,000 will serve as a very strong deterrent to any driver to watch how they drive, mind those businesses, not let it be the business of the day. So it was just listed out there. Some attract the jail term, like the driving under influence, like not allowing yourself to be checked while you, or what was that word they called this again? Is it the Balthazar or something that you get to do? I can't remember that now. I would have checked that and let you know that you get to do if you don't. 100,000 fine, 6 months jail term for you, all of that. But that was not the only thing that this bill is seeking to do. The bill is also seeking to stop hawking, trading, and preaching inside commercial vehicles. If you have entered any vehicle, those of us that are here in Abuja, we know how it is. When you enter a commercial vehicle, you see people selling, hawking, or preaching, trying to reach out to people, and you will see response from a lot of people, passengers in the vehicle. Some people will try to join the preacher to read the Bible. Some people will try to buy a lot of sweet candy from those who are selling inside the bus. Now, the Senate is saying that should not be a business anymore. If they catch anybody who is doing that, I think that those ones, their fine too is I think it is also 100,000, or is it 50,000 naira now? Okay, I think that's of the hawking and the selling and preaching in buses. If they are convicted, is 50,000 naira. That is what the Senate is proposing. But guess what? Of course, Nigerians are not finding it funny. A lot of people are saying those are the ones that you will easily pass. Somebody who is preaching in the bus is not exactly doing any harm or constituting any nuisance, except the people complain about it, or it is the responsibility of the driver to say, we don't want this person in this place. But when we have someone in the vehicle that is preaching or selling, as long as it is NAFDAC approved, as long as it is not the wrong thing selling, why would you want to make laws to stand against it? Well, that is the bill right now. And all that is waiting, all that the bill needs is the accent of the president, and then we get that happening. Well, another matter is that yesterday, still, like I said, the Senate was actually very busy yesterday, the red chambers. Yesterday, the Senate withdrew the passage of the crime proceeds bill, say they want to scrutinize it. Now, a quick background to this is, you know how, like I already said when we were checking the business stories, that we keep seeing a whole lot of, this one is under ICPC, under EFCC, police arrest this one for fraud, misappropriation while in office, all of that. We have a whole lot of that. People's properties have been seized, funds have been remitted to the federal government when they go through these processes of, checkmating this report and all of that. That has happened for a long time. But it appears that I think about 18 government agencies are in charge of this, and they recover these assets in their own possession, and there is no centralized place where these assets go to. So there is this whole speculation of, some of them, and at the end of the day, sell it behind Nigerians. All we see is that this money or this asset have been recovered, but they have gone to sell it somewhere. And then others are like, even at that, some of the assets are left hanging until they start rotting. So we need an agency. That was what the Senate did. And as at the 9th of this month, this July, the Senate actually passed the bill to have a structured agency to check it, to make sure that these assets are not moving anywhere. This is where it should be, and it should be put into good use. Eventually, they came back to withdraw that yesterday, saying that they detected, I think that was from the Senator Bamidele, who is chairing the committee, that also mentioned that they detected that some of the rules that they gave out is clashing with the constitutions, and they don't want something that they want to pass out there that will be a problem. Okay, that's very reasonable, point of view. Still, you get reactions of people saying, we hope that by the time that this comes back, other things fishy will not be added into it, because it has to be as clear as possible. How many of you are following that bill, the claim proceeds bill? How many are following it? I don't know. Are you following it? Are you in charge? Are you aware of what's going on? Are you up to date on the matter? You need to stay up to date to know where these funds, because this is Nigerian funds. At the end of the day, these are Nigerian assets that were mismanaged or siphoned, and all those words before, when some people are in office, according to them, if they have been convicted. So when they come back, where did they go to? What are they now used for? You need to know, because that is your job as a Nigerian to know that. Now, while all of that legislation is going on inside Nigeria, outside Nigeria, the United States representative passed their own bill, which is in the paper this morning, saying, some of the papers actually carried it, a few of them carried it, saying that, you know what, we have been talking to Nigerians about, Nigerian government about controlling this killings, kidnapping, banditry, insecurity going on in Nigeria, and it appears that the Nigerian government seem not to have a grasp on things, or are just giving us excuses one time out the other. So what we want to do now is we're going to withhold our security assistance and our financial assistance until the Nigerian government can prove to us that they can put the house in order. If not, we're not giving the assistance. That was what they passed at the US yesterday, withholding that because of the matters on terrorism. Now, does Nigeria need assistance from the United States? That's the question. Don't forget that I think it was last year, some troops from the United States came to Nigeria to assist in fighting terrorism. So you need to ask the question once again, do they need help financially? Do they need help security-wise from the United States? If you do, and it is very important to you, what are you going to do to see that you put an end to it? Because that is what the United States is saying. Until we see that result, we're not ready to help you on any matter like that. That is that. I don't know if you saw the story about the young lady who sadly took her own life after a content creator took advantage of her. That lady did a very lengthy video. I watched the video. I cried. This lady was naive, so to speak. Like, she was trusting. She met this man, spoke to this man in confidence, and this man said, come over. She came over, and he took advantage of her without remorse. And the pain of what happened led her to get home and take her own life. It is very sad. Yes, the report had it this morning that the police had already arrested this man, and I also saw the video of him pleading for his life and saying it was a mistake. He will pay anything. This was his statement, his word in that video, that he will pay, he will do anything to make this go away. Then, it led some Nigerians to go check this content creator, this so-called internet celebrities pages, and started seeing that this person does not even have moral standing, because the way the man speaks in his videos, as some ways he always talks about nothing but how he hooks up with women and all of that. And I was wondering, wow, this is terrible. Unfortunately, this lady took her life, and she it would have been better that she were alive to see the justice. But her twin sister is there, and it is so sad. So sad, these stories. Parents, please try as much as possible to be your children's friend. Even guardians, be your children's friend. Let them have the time to confide in you. She said she was trying to look for how to make money at the age of 20 into 21, trying to make money. No matter the financial pressure, everybody faces financial pressure, whether it is the children or the parents. Don't let it be a reason why you will run off, and not carry your family along. So please, parents, try as much as possible to know what your children are passing through before they will go and seek advice in the hands of monsters. Is not expected. It's not what should happen. But anyway, thank you so much. This is what we can take for the newspaper review today. Thank you for being a part of it. Of course, we'll come back on Monday with more edition, and it will be a full house. Thank you for being a part of us on the YouTube space at Ray Power Abuja. My name is Dima. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. Let's get to the network studio for more on the Ultimate Money Show. Good morning.